Don't think like other people, because the moment you start thinking like everyone else, you stop becoming who you were created to be. Most people don't think for themselves. They borrow opinions, they inherit fears, they copy limitations without questioning where those limits came from. Society teaches you how to fit in, how to be acceptable, how to stay small enough to be comfortable for others. But greatness has never come from fitting in. It has always come from those who dared to think differently. Most people believe their thoughts are their own, but in reality, much of what they think has been handed to them by someone else. From childhood, beliefs are planted in the mind by parents, teachers, culture, religion, social media, and society at large. These beliefs are repeated so often that they begin to feel like personal truth, even when they were never examined or chosen consciously. People grow up accepting rules about what is possible, what is realistic, and what is safe, without ever asking who decided those rules in the first place. Borrowed thinking is dangerous because it operates silently. A person may say, "I can't do that," not realizing that this limitation did not originate from experience, failure, or proof, but from someone else's fear. Many people are living inside mental boundaries that were created by individuals who never dared to go beyond them. Dreams are abandoned not because they are impossible, but because someone once said they were unrealistic, risky, or foolish. Society rewards agreement more than truth. When you think the same way as everyone else, you are accepted, validated, and left undisturbed. This encourages people to repeat popular opinions instead of forming their own. Over time, independent thinking feels uncomfortable, even wrong, because the mind has been trained to seek approval rather than understanding. As a result, people stop questioning ideas, stop challenging assumptions, and stop exploring new perspectives. Borrowed thinking also creates emotional weakness. When your thoughts are not your own, your confidence depends on external validation. You hesitate to act because you are waiting for others to agree with you. You doubt yourself when opinions change. You feel lost when guidance disappears. A mind that has never learned to think independently struggles to stand firm during pressure, criticism, or uncertainty. The tragedy is that many people live their entire lives without realizing this. They follow paths chosen by others, chase goals that don't fulfill them, and accept limitations that were never meant for them. They confuse familiarity with truth and popularity with correctness. Until a person becomes aware that their thinking is borrowed, they remain mentally controlled by forces they cannot see. Breaking free from borrowed thinking requires courage. It means questioning long-held beliefs, challenging comfortable lies, and risking misunderstanding. But awareness is the first step. Once you realize that not every thought in your mind belongs to you, you begin the process of reclaiming your mental freedom. When you think like everyone else, you unknowingly sign an agreement with mediocrity. The majority of people operate within the same mental patterns, chase the same definitions of success, and accept the same limitations. If your thinking is identical to the crowd, your results will eventually mirror the crowd's outcomes. You cannot expect extraordinary results from ordinary thinking, no matter how hard you work. Average thinking focuses on safety, not growth. It asks, what is the least risky option instead of what is the most meaningful one? It prioritizes comfort over potential and approval over purpose. When most people see an opportunity, they first look for reasons it might fail. They wait for proof, permission, and guarantees. This mindset keeps them stuck in cycles of hesitation while time passes and opportunities disappear. The crowd follows trends, not vision. When everyone is moving in one direction, it feels logical to move with them, but trends are temporary, and following them rarely leads to long-term fulfillment or success. People who think like everyone else often arrive late, competing in overcrowded spaces where originality has already been lost. By the time something becomes popular, the real advantage is already gone. Thinking like others also limits decision-making. You begin to measure your choices against what is socially acceptable rather than what aligns with your potential. Instead of asking, is this right for me? You ask, will this look right to others? This creates a life built on comparison, where progress is judged by how well you keep up, not by how far you grow. Average results are not always obvious at first. They can look stable, respectable, and secure. But over time, they reveal themselves through frustration, unfulfilled ambition, and the quiet regret knowing you never explored what you were truly capable of. Many people work hard their entire lives yet feel empty because they followed a path that was common, not meaningful. When you adopt the thinking of the majority, you also inherit their excuses. This is just how life is, Duff. This is the best I can do. People like us don't go further than this. These statements sound normal because they are repeated so often, but they quietly cap your growth. They turn potential into limitation and dreams into fantasies instead of plans. Breaking away from average thinking requires accepting uncertainty. It means being willing to look wrong before you are proven right. It requires patience, resilience, and faith in your own vision when there is no applause. But the moment you stop thinking like everyone else, you step off the path of average results and into the possibility of an uncommon life. Greatness has never been built on imitation. Every significant achievement in history began with someone who refused to accept the common way of thinking. Independent thinking is the ability to observe the world, question what is presented, and arrive at conclusions based on understanding rather than agreement. It is the mental strength to stand alone when necessary and to trust your own reasoning even when it is unpopular. Most people confuse intelligence with information, but greatness comes from interpretation. Two people can see the same situation, face the same obstacles, and receive the same information, yet reach completely different outcomes. The difference lies in how they think. Independent thinkers analyze problems from multiple angles, challenge assumptions, and search for solutions beyond what is obvious. They are not limited by how things have always been done. Independent thinking requires courage because it invites resistance. When you think differently, you disrupt comfort zones, both yours and others. People who rely on conformity feel threatened by those who challenge the norm. That is why independent thinkers are often criticized, doubted, or misunderstood long before they are celebrated. The resistance they face is not proof they are wrong. It is evidence they are not following the script. Greatness demands personal responsibility. An independent thinker cannot blame circumstances, society, or other people for their mental state. They take ownership of their beliefs, decisions, and direction. Instead of waiting for instructions, they ask better questions. Instead of following existing paths, they create new ones. This sense of ownership builds resilience because their confidence is rooted in clarity, not approval. An independent thinking also sharpens vision. It allows you to see patterns others ignore and opportunities others dismiss. Where the crowd sees risk, an independent mind sees potential growth. Where others see limits, an independent thinker asks why those limits exist and whether they are real. This mindset transforms obstacles into lessons and failures into feedback rather than final judgments. Without independent thinking, talent is wasted. Many capable individuals never reach greatness because they never challenge the beliefs that restrain them. They possess skills, intelligence, and passion, yet remain stuck because their thinking is outsourced to tradition, fear, or public opinion. Independent thinking activates potential by freeing the mind from invisible constraints. Greatness is not about being different for attention. It is about being authentic in thought. Independent thinkers do not reject ideas simply because they are popular, nor do they accept them for the same reason. They evaluate, reflect, and decide with intention. This disciplined approach to thinking is what separates those who merely exist from those who leave a lasting impact. Fear is contagious. It moves silently from one mind to another through words, expressions, warnings, and advice. When people think like others, they don't just inherit opinions, they inherit fears. One person's doubt becomes another person's hesitation, and over time, entire communities begin to live cautiously, avoiding risks they never personally tested. Fear spreads quickly because it disguises itself as wisdom, concern, and realism. Most fears are learned, not experienced. A child is not born afraid of failure, rejection, or judgment. These fears are absorbed from the environment through stories of loss, repeated warnings, and the visible anxieties of others. When someone says, "Don't try that, it's too risky," the fear is passed along without evidence. Over time, these warnings settle into the subconscious and begin to shape decisions automatically. Courage, on the other hand, requires effort and intention. It does not spread as easily because it demands action. Watching someone be brave can inspire you, but it still requires you to move, to risk, to step into uncertainty yourself. Fear asks you to do nothing, and that is why it travels faster. Inaction feels safe, familiar, and socially acceptable. When you think like the crowd, fear becomes normalized. Playing small feels responsible. Staying silent feels smart. Avoiding bold decisions feels mature. But this collective fear slowly drains ambition. People stop dreaming out loud, stop attempting difficult goals, and stop believing in outcomes they cannot immediately see. Fear doesn't need to stop you violently. It only needs to make you comfortable where you are. And fear also creates false logic, convinces people that worst case scenarios are the most likely outcomes. It magnifies obstacles and minimizes potential. Under fear-driven thinking, failure feels permanent, embarrassment feels fatal, and rejection feels unbearable. This distorted thinking keeps people trapped in mental cages they mistake for reality. Courage disrupts this cycle. One courageous decision can expose fear for what it is, an assumption, not a fact. But to choose courage, you must be willing to think differently from those around you. You must recognize when fear is being borrowed rather than earned through experience. Until then, fear continues to multiply, passed from person to person, shaping lives without ever being questioned. Your mind was designed to produce ideas, solutions, and vision, not to merely replicate what already exists. Yet many people use their minds like photocopy machines, repeating opinions, goals, and lifestyles they see around them. They consume thoughts from social media, society, and their environment without filtering or questioning them. Over time, originality is replaced with imitation, and creativity is buried under conformity. When the mind becomes a copier, it stops exploring. Instead of asking, "What do I truly want?" it asks, "What are others doing?" Decisions are made based on trends rather than purpose. Goals are chosen because they look impressive, not because they align with inner values. This leads to a life that looks successful on the outside, but feels empty on the inside because it was never authentically chosen. Copying feels safe because it removes responsibility. If everyone is doing the same thing, failure feels less personal. Blending in provides protection from judgment, criticism, and accountability. But this safety comes at a cost. A copied life can never fully satisfy a unique mind. Deep frustration often comes from living someone else's blueprint while ignoring your own inner voice. A creative mind challenges existing patterns. It asks new questions and explores different paths. Creation requires effort, patience, and tolerance for uncertainty. There is no clear map when you create. You must think, adapt, and learn along the way. That is why many people avoid it. Creation demands mental strength, while copying only demands observation. When you train your mind to create, you stop relying on external validation. You become confident in your ability to generate solutions rather than wait for instructions. Problems no longer feel like dead ends, but invitations to think deeper. This mindset builds resilience because even when one idea fails, the mind knows it can produce another. Original thinking also separates leaders from followers. Leaders create direction, followers repeat direction. When your mind operates creatively, you are no longer confined to existing limits. You begin to see possibilities where others see routines. You recognize that progress does not come from repeating what already exists, but from improving, reshaping, and reimagining it. A mind that creates is alive, active, and purposeful. It is not afraid to stand alone or appear different. It understands true fulfillment comes from expression, not imitation. When you stop copying the world and start creating within it, your thinking becomes a source of power rather than a reflection of limitation. Comfort feels harmless, but it is one of the most powerful forces holding people back. When thinking like everyone else, comfort becomes the primary goal. Staying safe, avoiding discomfort, and maintaining what feels familiar, the mind begins to associate growth with danger and routine with security. Over time, this way of thinking slowly shrinks ambition without ever causing immediate pain, which is why it is so difficult to recognize. Comfortable thinking avoids challenge. It chooses what is easy over what is necessary. People remain in situations they have outgrown because change feels uncertain. They delay bold decisions, convincing themselves that no is not the right time. This mindset keeps life predictable but stagnant. Nothing breaks down, but nothing truly builds up either. Growth demands discomfort. Learning something new requires admitting ignorance. Pursuing a bigger goal requires risking failure. Thinking differently requires standing alone at times. These experiences stretch the mind and strengthen character, but they feel uncomfortable at first. Most people retreat the moment discomfort appears, mistaking it for a warning instead of a sign of progress. Comfort also distorts priorities. Instead of asking, what will help me grow, people ask, what will keep me relaxed? Instead of preparing for the future, they protect the present. This creates a cycle where short-term ease is chosen over long-term fulfillment. The result is a life that feels stable but unchallenged, busy but unexpanded. When comfort dominates thinking, potential remains unused. Talents are underdeveloped because mastery requires effort. Dreams remain ideas because execution demands discomfort. Even dissatisfaction becomes familiar and people learn to tolerate it rather than confront it. The mind adapts to limitation and begins to treat it as normal. Breaking free from comfort-based thinking requires a shift in perspective. Discomfort must be seen as a signal for growth, not a threat. Challenges must be viewed as training, not punishment. When you stop thinking like everyone else and begin embracing discomfort intentionally, growth becomes unavoidable and stagnation loses its grip. Rejection is one of the most misunderstood experiences in life. When you think like everyone else, rejection feels like a stop sign. Proof that you should turn back, stay quiet, or choose a safer route. But for those who think independently, rejection often appears at the very moment growth begins. It is not always a signal of failure. Many times, it is evidence that you are stepping outside familiar boundaries. People tend to reject what they do not understand. New ideas challenge existing beliefs, and unfamiliar thinking makes others uncomfortable. When you move in a direction that differs from the norm, you disrupt the mental comfort of those around you. Their rejection is often a defense mechanism, not a reflection of your worth or capability. They are reacting to uncertainty, not to truth. Rejection also exposes the difference between approval and alignment. Approval comes from fitting in, while alignment comes from staying true to your vision. When you pursue something meaningful, you may lose applause but gain clarity. Those who require constant validation rarely move beyond average because their decisions depend on acceptance rather than purpose. Many people abandon their path at the first sign of resistance. They interpret rejection as proof they are wrong instead of feedback that they are different. But history shows that most breakthroughs were rejected before they were celebrated. Ideas that later changed the world were once ignored, criticized, or mocked because they didn't fit existing frameworks. Rejection builds internal strength. When you are not supported externally, you are forced to develop belief internally. This process sharpens resilience, discipline, and self-trust. You learn to separate your identity from public opinion and your progress from applause. Without rejection, many people never develop the mental toughness required for long-term success. Rejection also filters relationships. It reveals who supports your growth and who only supports your conformity. Some people are comfortable with you as long as you remain predictable. When you begin to evolve, their discomfort surfaces. This is not loss, it is clarity. Understanding this prevents you from shrinking yourself to maintain acceptance. Choosing to continue despite rejection is a declaration of independence. It means you value purpose over popularity and growth over comfort. When rejection appears, it is often a sign that you are no longer thinking like everyone else. And that shift, though uncomfortable, marks the beginning of something meaningful. From an early age, society trains people to blend in. You are taught to follow rules, meet expectations, and avoid standing out too much. Conformity is rewarded with acceptance, approval, and a sense of belonging. When you think like everyone else, life often feels smoother because you are not questioned, challenged, or criticized. This creates the illusion that conformity is the safest and smartest path. However, conformity only offers short-term comfort. It helps people survive within systems, but it rarely helps them leave a mark. Those who conform are often praised in the moment, yet forgotten over time. Their ideas merge into the background because they never challenge what already existed. Living to please the system may earn stability, but it rarely creates significance. Originality, on the other hand, is often punished before it is praised. New ideas disrupt routines and challenge established norms. When someone thinks differently, they are often labeled unrealistic, difficult, or strange. Society resists originality because it forces change, and change threatens comfort. This is why original thinkers are frequently criticized long before they are respected. History makes this pattern clear. The people remembered are not those who followed instructions perfectly, but those who questioned them. Innovators, leaders, and visionaries were rarely accepted immediately. Their ideas were misunderstood because they operated beyond the limits of conventional thinking. What once seemed foolish later became foundational. Conformity asks, how do I fit in? Originality asks, what can I contribute? This difference shapes the direction of a life. When your goal is to fit in, you shrink your thinking to match the environment. When your goal is to contribute, you expand your thinking to create something new. Originality requires courage because it demands responsibility for your ideas and actions. Society may reward conformity with short-term approval, but approval fades quickly. Originality leaves impact even when it is resisted. It plants seeds that influence future thinking. People may not celebrate you now, but they will remember the shift you created. That is the price and the power of thinking differently.